The ashtray says you were up all night when you went to bed in your darkest mind. Your pillow wet covered your eyes and you finally slept while the sun caught fire.
Yeah, we were talking a little earlier about the election in Oregon, where the attorney general race was determined by a medical cannabis issue, and the medical cannabis candidate won. Anyone that you know that came to mind of that were passed that you became aware of, and we're going to try to flush this out. This is one of our objectives over the next months of who the candidates are and what their stance is on medical cannabis and maybe even legalization. It would be an interesting thing. We should do that. We should make the legalization part of the campaign as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. I think so. Yeah, we need to look at who all the candidates are and try to, eliminate some of the worst ones.
Well, that was the idea, because many people may not know what candidates' stances are in judicial positions or where they stand politically. This has been a big complaint amongst, I think, lawyers especially, because there will be enough voters at the polls that will put, the party, so-called party, into victory, but they don't know the party affiliation of the judges because they're just identified as incumbents, and then they usually get voted in. And this has always been, I remember the months that, I can't, it's just a lot of bad decisions, but the objective would be that we have vetted the candidates and understand their position on these issues that we're talking about, and be able to let the various communities know, where they stand on and make a recommended vote for these things. Kind of how they do it.
Right. I had the chance to meet and speak with Bridget McCormick, who's going to be one of the Democratic candidates for Supreme Court. She indicated to me that she supports medical marijuana, and so that's good. And there are the Republicans on the court who are running for re-election right now. It'll be interesting to see how they come down in the King and Kolinek decisions, which should be due any day, right?
Yep, that's true.
And of course, they're still contemplating, considering a couple of other cases that they could hear this season as well.
Well, what's interesting, I think, is Kolinek and King could be ruled upon, and the bills could pass and immediately affect one another. You know what I mean? Because Kolinek will address the jury trial issue, right? In some capacity, I think that's one of the focus of it. And I think the King decision, is another one that will address, your right to present a defense or not. And then you've got a bill, if it passes as the language is right now, whatever that would say, it sets out very specific limitations as to when someone would not be able to, right? It would be only if you're in, violation of Section K, or some violation of Section 7, and you have to establish Section 8A, your doctor-patient relationship. But you would actually be able to have a not locked facility, right? That would not be a basis because
and take it to trial, right?
And take it to trial, right?
And your weights and plant counts don't matter,
right? And you can go in front of a jury and explain away, as the law was intended. Your reasoning for it, usable material, all that stuff.
Could theoretically get a jury trial for selling to another cardholder, even theoretically.
Man, I've got about. It's terrible, and I can't stand the bills. But there are about 10 cases that I think are pending. That would have an immediate effect if this bill passed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You want it to be better.
My biggest concern is the access to the registry, though.
Of course.
That would be a huge change, and I think it'll scare a good number of people away from the program if they know that the police have access to the registry by name or address, even though it's a lien inquiry and there are records kept of every inquiry made.
It's terrible. No one in the right mind would support it. It's a lie to the 135,000 people that were promised that this would never happen. It's like I was joking last week. It's like in the 7th inning, you say, okay, now we're going to go to 2 strikes and 3 balls. Okay, play ball, right? And
but that would imply that the same rules go for both teams, and that's not the case here.
Right. Both are right. Okay, that's a mixed bad metaphor. But yes, no one would want that, and of course, the question, the only way that that could ever be tolerated if there was actually a real way to enforce violations of it, right? Because the only way someone's ever going to get a chance to challenge it is if there's been an arrest and that they've, written a report honestly as to how they got to that particular place, and being able to contest, whether they had probable cause to get in there, because it's only something that could be challenged, right? How do you challenge probable cause unless it's in front of a judge, right, or a magistrate?
Right.
So you're only going to know about it after someone's been arrested, and the question is, how are you going to be able to track it, and how are you going to be able to actually, and are there going to be penalties? There's supposed to be penalties written into the law that will, suffice for punishment of some kind if there's dissemination of the material, or if it's used wrong. What is it? If it's used wrongly?
They
Well,
actually
it's a person who
expanded that
discloses
thing.
it to someone who's not allowed to have the information. But then the cops would be allowed to have the information, theoretically, as part of an investigation.
They actually expanded the language to say, rather than just disclosure, there's now punishment for disclosure, access, or use that is not in accordance with the law. So it's actually an expanded number of things that they can do wrong to be charged with the violation.
But I don't know. I mean, that's I'm going to have a tough time.
Theoretically.
Yeah, I'm going to have a tough time seeing that Justice O'Connell is not going to see that as being, normal police activity. It is illegal, right? It's illegal behavior, and
Right.
and what they're doing is they're investigating illegal behavior. What's wrong with that? They would say. But the question is, like, if you could actually point it out and find it, what penalty and who's going to enforce it?
Sure.
I still want to know if there's been any complaints that have ever been made about violations of HIPAA, or violations of the Act of disseminating information, and if anyone's taken any action. I mean, thinking the Attorney General would be the person that would be enforcing that protection.
Right. I bet there has not been, but we could do a Freedom of Information Act request to see.
Robin is
We
joining us,
couldn't
I believe. Robin Schneider from Lansing, our dear friend. Robin?
Hi there, guys. How are ya?
Thanks for calling in.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Robin.
Happy birthday, Robin.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
So, Robin, we talked a little bit about some Lansing action on some of the bills and the thought about possibility of some of the Senate bills that are going to prohibit felons from being caregivers when it passes over to the House, whether it would be accepted or potentially held back because of the contradiction between that and the existing House language. What's your take on that issue?
Well, we did speak with Senator Jones this morning about this very topic, and he mentioned that he feels strongly that all felons should be banned from being caregivers because he wouldn't want a thief coming in his grandmother's home to take care of his grandmother. So, he's very serious about that and something that's very important to him. And so I believe that when that bill gets to his committee, not the one that's pending in the House, but the one that has just come out of the House, I believe that they're going to probably amend that in this Judiciary Committee, and then it'll have to go back to the House for another vote, and, it's going to be our job to, try to, temper that somehow.
Try to get more votes against it.
Or get a
Well,
favorable amendment.
the concern is, I'm one of those people, I don't necessarily think that a rapist should be a caregiver. And I've always felt that way. And that's, I really feel that way, especially for women. And I've actually seen situations where, I just didn't think it was a positive thing. But to say all felons is pretty extreme.
To see tax evaders not being able to be caregivers, that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, so my concern with that, too, once it gets back to the House again, if they mess with it, it may just not pass. It might, we've got an election coming up in November. The longer they let this, have changes and the longer they mess with it, the less chance I believe they have of passing it.
Well, I hope that's true. I'm glad to hear your optimism on that subject, Robin. That's good.
Now, what are your thoughts on that? You got any comment on the this felon bill thing?
Well, I agree with Robin about the more complicated it gets, the less chance there is that anything is going to pass. And as far as the felon thing, I don't know. To me, I see Robin's point, and other than that, it's I don't have a felony record, so I don't really have a big concern one way or the other, and I don't want to be a caregiver either. So, I'm disinterested in that subject. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think it's I think Jones's position that once a felon, always a bad person is unjust. I mean,
Amen.
And I think that people rehabilitate themselves, and if one person has a felony, what the system doesn't work, someone can't be rehabilitated in some capacity. People catch cases for all kinds of reasons, and they you want to believe that they're able to pull themselves up. So I think sometimes the labeling of a felon is a terrible.
Jones's answer to this is that he has sponsored a bill to absolve people of one felony. And it's a general purpose problem across all of society.
Yeah, but that has a future bill on that one issue doesn't justify anybody's yes vote on this bill.
I actually thought about when they were talking about maybe there'd be an exception to that if they could somehow show good cause in front of a judge. You know what I mean? Where they would go, I've got a loved one, and even though I've got an armed robbery conviction from 20 years ago, I need to be a caregiver because, you know what I mean? And
I'm saying there's a general purpose structure for this already that exists.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to have. I'm not supporting that, but it would be good if there was some. I find it. I think of all the felonies that should not be, it's for the drug felony convictions, right? Because
that's where I'm at with it too. I mean, I know people that have felonies that involve marijuana from 20, 30 years ago. They're incredible people. They would never hurt anyone, and there's just no reason for this. I mean, they did their time. Their punishment's done. It's not like it's some pervert. It's somebody that was using marijuana. Big deal,
Or they were doing it medicinally and they got caught, right?
Well, they should have their felony expunged according to this bill then.
Well, a lot of times these people have, multiple felonies all wrapped up into one, too.
But what difference does it make what a future bill says? I mean, let's talk about existent law right now.
No, it did pass. It passed last year.
So the one felony exclusion then?
157?
Yeah.
You can go through a process to...
I took a look at that, if I can. I took a look at that bill, and I think Jones is misstating what it does. There's always been an expungement statute where a person can have one conviction, would have the opportunity and ask a court to expunge one conviction if they've only ever had one in their life, and it's not one of the top felonies, murder, rape, or armed robbery, I believe, and as long as it's not a driving offense.
Right.
You can have a misdemeanor theft offense expunged. You can have a felony cultivation offense expunged, as long as that's the only one. And that's always been the law, right, Michael?
It has. They actually changed it a little bit because I know that it used to be you had to wait till after the end of your sentence and then wait the 3 years for misdemeanor and 5 years for a felony. They did it after the date of the sentence, so there's actually a little benefit in the time frame.
Right, but I think the change only affected 90-day misdemeanor cases, which affect people under 21 years of age, if you look at it, which it sounds like are MIPs, minor in possession of alcohol. And so if a person has 2 MIPs, they can still get one of those expunged, I believe, or both of them expunged. But that's the only thing it applies to are these MIPs. So for Jones to say that he sponsored a bill that allows felony expungement, that's just not true unless there's, unless I'm completely mistaken about this. But that bill only addressed MIPs, and he's just woofing on that.
The point that somebody was making is that once you have a felony, you see the way that Jones kind of views it now anyway. So I don't want one of those. And it's true, you get marked, targeted. And then once you are marked and targeted in a community, it's more likely that you're going to have trouble, right? Getting caught up in the system and being known amongst the police force with those kind of things, and it just brings trouble. And you see that more and more in different communities, and it's a common theme in law enforcement. I would think not all, but the way that they instinctively are trained is that once you're in that category, that they're going to view you differently. I think it's part of the investigative method.
Yeah, that's certainly true. It's not fair, but it's that it is what it is.
You become the person that's likely to have been involved with something.
It shows up in search warrants. We check the lien on the person. He's got a prior drug conviction for, for manufacturing marijuana. It's always.
So that smear on his record, that scarlet letter he wears for life, that never goes away, regardless of his service and his penance.
It's true. They do that with the. That's one of the things. It's such a sophisticated level of tying people into a system for identifying and investigating that. For it to be removed, like no one would know what to do. There's so much energy that's driven into to all of this identifying and labeling. But so, Robin, what's the word with the bills in the House? In the Senate right now. The other ones that went out of the House. Any word on that?
Yeah, they're going to be called the hearing. They're tentatively set for June 12th to get called to judiciary, where they'll have some public testimony. And then, there isn't a whole lot of time. I think that, there's probably like the following week in the Senate. And then after that, there's a break. There might be like one session day in July. And then there's just not much going on. So I wouldn't expect to see anything happen until fall.
How about the Supreme Court decisions? Any word if they're coming down anytime soon? King, Kalanick?
Not that I know of on those.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you got any inside tips on that?
No, all I can say is I'm pretty sure their term ends July 31st, and they'll issue it before then. My guess is they're going to issue a mess of opinions those last couple of weeks of July. But who knows? It could be any time.
Mm-hmm. Blast a lot of stuff out so that it doesn't stand out as any source of criticism.
Well, just the way their work runs, they're working on a lot of opinions at the same time, and their term ends the end of July. They're all going to want to go on vacation, so they'll finish them all up. And I don't think there's anything nefarious
about it. No.
Just human nature. Everybody procrastinates, and they want to go on vacation.
So, Matt, there's some question about if whether or not there's still meetings going on at the offices down there at 2930 East Jefferson Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, on Monday nights any longer. Can you give us some insight as to whether folks should be gathering down there and what the purpose would be?
Well, we've tried to move it to the field where the purpose now is to gather signatures, and so we want to make it event-based and not just to have political meetings on Monday night. If people want to have a particular strategy meeting about a particular topic, we should set that up in advance and publicize it such that everybody knows. For example, if we were going to have a meeting either about the campaign or the other thing we could do is now that the filing deadline is passed, we could look at who all the candidates are and select which ones we want to help and which ones we want to hurt. So we could do that.
Yes.
Yeah. But in other words, there's no set meetings on Mondays and no reasons for people to come down unless there's a specifically prearranged event, right?
That's correct. Thank you,
right.
Rick.
Spend your Monday night in the field collecting signatures.
Well, we're hoping to do the same kind of projects, and we talked with, Jamie was discussing the VGIP and this whole targeting of candidates, Matt, and I know that it's a big project, but, how we can all work together. But the first thing is really to get the people out to collect signatures for the repeal.
Right, we can get that done by early July, and then we can go on to figure out who to support in the August primary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're listening to Planet Green Trees. We've got about 17 minutes left. The call number is 1-347-326-9626. We're talking to Matthew Abel of Cannabis Council, nationally renowned attorney. Also, Robin Schneider from Lansing. Robin, thanks for being with us as well. And I think we got to take a call. We got an 810 caller here. Let's see who this is. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. This is Perry from Clio, and I know most of you guys there. And I just got to say that from the start, it was great to hear that Eric Gunnels is running for a political position there in Thetford Township. It's I think it's important that some of the people, especially listeners who are concerned about seeing true change and not just as a catchphrase, that they get a part of that. And it's kind of late in the season now, but there'll be elections coming up for the rest of our lives. And so I thought that was important. And then also with the campaign for repeal, I'd love to see a meeting where we could especially discuss the media aspects and how we can get the message to everybody. I know a lot of hard work's been put in through press releases and meetings and all these other things. I do think it would be greatly important to see what we could do, and I don't even know what the budget or anything like that is, but whether it's radio ads or television ads, to create a cycle where people actually see it, they know where to donate, and then that money goes back in and gets more people involved. Right now television airtime is used to advertise everything from Taco Bell to Art Van to cars and everything else. But we still don't see any medical marijuana at all in the media besides hydroponic stores. And so that's just my take on it. Obviously, I'd really like to see this pass, and I think that promotion is probably the way to do it. I still run into people today that have no idea that it's happening, and it's not due to lack of effort by any stretch of the imagination. I just think maybe the message just hopefully can be expanded, and these days the airwaves is the common place to do that. So, but I hope that there is a meeting at some point upcoming. I'd love to be there for that.
Well, Perry, I know you attended a couple of the meetings at Matt's office on Monday with some of the rest of us here. So you were involved in this long before it was completely formed and organized. So thanks for your service the whole time, and your request for a big media meeting is very well noted. It's great that we have Matt on the line right now when we took your call. Matt, what's your take on that?
Well, I'm happy to hear from Perry, and we should talk off air, or Perry should sit down with some of the campaign staff, and let's do that. But I don't think we want to do a general open meeting to talk media. I don't think we'll get anything done that way. But Rick and Eric and Perry, all you guys, you're all media people. So let's sit down face to face and get her done.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Perry.
And once again, I mean, from my end, I just think that could be the next step. But I've been there and I've seen it. The work that people have put in on this is phenomenal. And you putting over tonight the idea that there are all these thousands of sheets that have signature sheets that have been put out there. It'd be great to see those come back in, because this is a game changer. This is a life changer. At this point, it's going to change the not only the freedoms that people deal with, but it's also going to change perhaps as well the industrial and economic freedoms when it comes to actually legalizing and growing hemp and being able to use it for all these different products. I was just looking at some hemp products today, and beyond Canada, to even order these in to sell or to do anything, I'm looking at China, and that's really there's been a serious I don't know what the proper terminology is, but just bottom line, it's been banned, and all this industrial and all these other applications of the plant have been limited. So the message that you guys have presented tonight is very important, and I appreciate you guys being there as well. So.
How about Eric Gunnels setting the example for all of us to follow by running for public office and putting himself out there and all the stuff that entails? So that's the real example right here in that story.
Matt, I know a lot of people...
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, Carrie Newell was actually running here in Genesee County, and she kind of inspired Eric to get in the game here. So people inspiring each other to do great things.
So even a campaign that technically didn't succeed in getting their candidate elected was still successful in inspiring others. That's a great story.
Sure, and the thing with Carrie's is there was certainly a fight that she had to face, it's not like it was just, all right, she ran and didn't necessarily win. In this area specifically, and I've worked in the media here as far as with the news here, it was very tough for her to be able to even get a position, in a position where she could speak on the television stations, even be on the same stage, and that happens in the larger spectrum, but it's no different here in local, regional areas as well. She really had to fight to even try to get on to the local stations when debates were occurring, was turned down before. I think she eventually got in right before the vote happened. But at that point, she's even fighting to get the same message out that everybody else had the proper time and so I dare to say it wasn't a fair fight.
Because that being held at a Republican primary was definitely a big disadvantage.
Absolutely. So, but thanks, guys. You guys are just awesome. It's great to hear you all tonight in the same studio. So,
appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, have a great one.
You too. Thanks, Perry. Matt, I know people probably would want to know what your thoughts are on the Provisioning Center bill. Any thoughts on it?
Right. Well, that would be great. That would be a huge step forward, I believe, and it doesn't knock out the individual caregivers. It lets them move their product to the market. So I think that it's good. Some of the record-keeping stuff I thought was a little unnecessary and a little burdensome. But generally, it'd be great. Let's call it Provisioning Center. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So, and that's something that has a good possibility of passage in the House. And if it has enough support in the House, it could certainly carry over that enthusiasm into the Senate.
Well, one of the things we were talking about earlier was, Rhode Island passed this, or so there's a bill that's on the governor's desk now where, in order for, obviously some of the concessions that were made, in addition to the quantity of marijuana that they could have on site, would be that they allowed for inspections of the dispensaries, and the state police were on the boards, overseeing the facilities. And we began a discussion about, the inspection issue. At what point, in that discussion of any kind of commercialization of cannabis, you're going to have law enforcement wanting to inspect, and the current bill would not set a situation that it could be justified, right? If instead of developing a commercial grow, this bill doesn't ask for it. It allows the existing caregiver system to supply it, so there'd be no need to inspect, which is good. It kind of eliminates that. But what about as far as the on-site inspection of the facility? Is that something that is going to be a given, you think, or is that something that should not be allowed?
The dispensaries themselves, I can't see them licensing them without somehow wanting an inspection.
Right.
That's what you have to give up. But that's, for the state officials who have licensed it, so I don't think they're going to be out to get the operators.
Right.
I would hope not.
Well, we compared it to anything else. I mean, I guess the protection level would be something the same as like if it was a health code inspector at a restaurant, or electrical something, checking the meters on a commercial, whatever it may be. There's going to be some method of that, anyways, right? But it's just a question of who is it going to be? Is it going to be the police, or is it going to be somebody that's a licensing enforcer, right?
Right. And that would seem to be appropriate.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. And
what do we think about how it interacts? How ordinances like Birmingham would interact with 5580? Because currently, the way that they're written, they actually appear to affect caregivers and patients in their own homes.
The complete total federal ban,
yes.
Livonia-style lockdown in those communities?
Would they have to revisit those, do we think? Or are those just still going to stand until
I think that probably 5580 would represent an opportunity for communities to seek an alternative to those things. I don't think it would mandate that they reevaluate their existing policy, but certainly if a call for a revision was made by the public, now those council persons would have a totally different set of rules to be operating under, and they'd have a completely legitimate reason to reverse a previous decision.
So it gives you a foot in the door with the communities that have
Jamie,
rejected
you know
it previously.
probably more about 5580 than anybody. What would you agree? Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, it doesn't affect residences. It's for those communities that have banned the activity in residences. I think that's just wrong. I mean, it's been challenged a few times, and it's trying to work its way through, and it hasn't gotten great rulings yet. But I still think that they shouldn't be able to supersede state law. People should automatically be able to do this in their home to get started with, and then the communities can decide whether or not to embrace commercial activity.
Well, here's a question.
5580 doesn't require that, though. 5580 does not mandate that home empowerment, does it?
No, it does not. It doesn't address it at all.
7 minutes left. Here's a question. Let's say the law goes into effect right now, the Provisionary Center bill. What impact does it have in Birmingham, for example? Who's going to put it on a ballot? Who's going to adopt it? Who's going to vote for it? How's it going to get there? If the city's against it, and how do they get it onto the vote, right? I mean, does it have to be a referendum within the city to get into the ballot?
A single council person has to insert a suggested ordinance, which would is the same way that the total bans were inserted.
But if they're taking a position that they've already voted to ban it, then you may just be completely shut out, right?
Well, you would have to follow the municipal override procedure,
which is to vote them out. That's like, I mean, you gotta eject them from
or
office.
if there's a referendum procedure or initiative procedure at the municipal level, which there may be.
But they could, and any ordinance can be introduced, though, in order to change from a total ban to a permissive schedule without any kind of a special hearing. These bans, as they put on there, don't have end dates on them, so they're just in perpetuity. Any change to the law should be subject to a new ordinance being introduced at any time.
I'm just trying to think in some of these cities that have banned it, how's that going to take place? I mean, what are you going to do? How are you going to move the mountain there?
Somebody's really going to have to step up on each one of those city councils. We had a great city council person in Ann Arbor that spoke at the VGIP at the Ohm of Medicine, and her name was Sandra Briere. And she is
Saper Briere.
Excuse me, thank you. I knew I was going to get it wrong, but she was standing up strong for people in Ann Arbor. There need to be courageous folks, I don't know, like maybe Eric Gunnels, who would be on all these other township boards all across the state that take positions where they can introduce these ordinances and get a logical, intelligent conversation going about that. And that does require a lot of personal sacrifice on people's parts, but that is what revolutions are made of.
Matt, any thoughts on any candidates that need to be identified right now that come to mind that people who are listening can tell in the areas that they're going to be on the ballot?
Identified as friendly or?
Yeah, friendly or foes.
Well, we know Jeff Irwin in Ann Arbor, who's running for re-election as state representative, is quite friendly. He spoke at the rally on Tuesday.
Oh, yes.
And
hero.
Representative Phil Kavanaugh has been pretty friendly. I live in a district in Detroit where there are two incumbent Democrats running against each other, Rashida Tlaib and Maureen Stapleton. So it's going to be an interesting race decided in the primary.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting election year here.
But
well, guys, I think I'll sign off and let you guys finish up your show. Thanks very much for giving me the time to come on, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the legislature. And thanks for all your help with repealtoday.org. Let's get this puppy on the ballot.
Keep on collecting signatures.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
I registered for the ballot. I'll be on the ballot in Birmingham.
Another hero.
Delegate.
Another hero.
In for the Democrats.
3:40 left. Go ahead. Keep it going around the clock here.
You know, in terms of the four bills, people are still approaching their lawmakers about this, and now we know there's a chance that an issue could be coming back to the House. I think it's important. I think at some point, some version of these are a foregone conclusion. It's gone through the hard part already. And so to look at it realistically, like some of the stuff's coming through, would be a good idea. But ask your representative and ask the lawmakers you talk to, did you do this? Is your intent to protect patients and to seriously clear up some things that you think really need to be addressed? Is your intent to protect patients? If this starts getting used in ways that we're scared of and against us and not for us, the intent is very important. The legislative intent. Make them say that, yes, we've always intended to protect patients by this. I don't think some of them understand some of the possibilities here at all.
Steve Sharp for delegate in Jackson County as well, through the chat room. Steve Sharp, delegate, Jackson County.
Nice. Neil Yashinsky, I believe, as well, is going to be in the Democrats, too.
Neil's going to be there also, or is like running as well? Good.
Over to Mike McShane for final thoughts as we go around the clock here.
Well, I'm just happy that I am not sick anymore. And, I put on Facebook today that smoked marijuana for years and got high, but I'll tell you what, when you cure somebody of cancer, that's really the true meaning, and I'm glad I'm in that place.
Hey, and I just wanted to say thanks to the Macomb Oakland Compassion Club. They had a big meeting this evening. I'm hoping that went very well. They had a big contingent that showed up at the rally on Tuesday. It was fantastic. The activism and the enthusiasm that's shown by people like Joe from Osceola County and all of those folks out in Kalamazoo and Stephen Sharp from Jackson, those are the type of things and activities and energetic bodies that keep this thing going, that keeps it more than just a couple of meetings a month at people's place. So for all of those people who are also individual heroes who may not be able to run for public office for whatever reason, you are also recognized, and please keep up the good work, and God bless all of you.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. I think we had a very interesting conversation with some of our guests in Colin, but we were able to really, I think, evolve the conversation. We had a lot of very important topics. I'm still going with that. The news of the week and maybe the month is that the Obama White House is now saying that the cannabis is not a gateway drug, but it's time to go. We're going to leave it at that. I also wanted to say and remind everybody that we are going to begin a calendar of events that are going to be happening in the area so people can identify a date to go out and collect signatures for the repeal movement. Please join us in that. And also our collection of identifying candidates for friend and foe and creating a slate by election time in November. For everybody else, thanks for listening. Thanks for being everybody, and have a safe week, and we'll be back again next week. And we'll talk to you then.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
I was 21 years when I wrote this song. I'm 22 now, but I won't be for long. People ask me when will you grow up to be a man, but all the girls I loved at school are already pushing prams. I loved you then as I love you still. Though I put you on a pedestal, they put you on the pill. I don't feel bad about letting you go, I just feel sad about letting you know. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for a New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for a New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I love the words you wrote to me, but that was bloody yesterday. I can't survive on what you send every time you need a friend. I saw 2 shooting stars last night, I wished on them, but they were only satellites. It's wrong to wish on space hardware. I wish you'd care. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for New England, I'm just looking for another girl. Looking for another girl, looking for another girl, looking for another girl.